This podcast is part of the C-Suite Radio Network, turning the volume up on business.
Welcome to the Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer. Join us as Deb talks with her guests, experts in their fields, as they share real-life stories and techniques to power up your business.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we're going to be having so much fun because we're going to be talking about how to really optimize how your organization operates. Things change so quickly anymore. Technology changes. We've got people that work around the world. Heck, I'm here in Atlanta. My guest is out in California. We literally can have employees around the world. We can have clients around the world. Things change. Things move so quickly. And my guest is going to talk to us about how we can hold it all together is maybe the best way to say on that. So please join me in welcoming Shannon Adkins to our program today. Welcome, Shannon.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great. Well, let me tell people just a little bit more about you. So Shannon Adkins is the CEO of Future State, a human-centered, purpose-driven management consulting company. Her firm practices what they preach, and their own journey of transformation is both inspirational and educational. Shannon is here to share with us what they've learned and how they help others on their journeys of growth, learning, and change. So again, Shannon, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, first, let's start out by, let's go back a little bit in time. Tell us how it is that this is what your passion is and how you came to be doing this.
Yeah, my journey's unusual, a little bit of magic thrown in.
Cool.
My first job out of college, I was an English major.
Okay.
Went to school at the beach, Santa Barbara. Had a dad that was a salesman in tech, and when I finished my degree, he was devastated and horrified and concerned and worried that I'd never ever find a job.
English degree,
and you spent the whole time on the beach, and what are you gonna do? And introduced me to a woman named Meryl Natchez, who's the founder and CEO of a consulting company, technical writing consulting company, based in San Francisco Bay Area, and asked her, please give my daughter a job, maybe like technical writer, maybe she can do something with technology and writing. And I met Meryl, and she said, no way, you would be the worst technical writer on the planet, but I think you might be able to sell, and there's this thing called the World Wide Web, and we should figure out what that is and what it means to our business and what we should be selling and how we should be building that. So as a ambitious and smart but clueless young person, I began working for Meryl. She gave me more accountability than more accountability than almost anybody I ever would work with again would give me, and said, go ahead, figure it out, build this business, I don't know, get out the phone book, start selling things, figure out what people want, go see what you can make happen. Fast forward a few years from that, I was a big part of the initial dot-com boom, and working in San Francisco, and a part of a number of venture-backed startups, and then a part of the crash, and moved into corporate America and into Wells Fargo Bank as an executive running a P&L, and into Intuit running a software developer network, and back to venture-backed startups. And in that period of time, I also became a mom and lost my mom, and really started to examine what matters most. I want to learn. I want to work hard. I want to be well compensated. I want to do work that matters for me and for the world. And I want to be seen and honored as a human in that process. I want to be able to be myself, and found that I was bumping up against a number of what felt like pretty significant barriers. I won't say glass ceiling, because it was more about self-expression ceiling, right? That the idea that one could be empathetic and kind and connected didn't seem to resonate with what it would take to move up the corporate ladder or be successful in VC. And I was being asked to bring more edge and more intensity, and simultaneously working on bringing less edge and less intensity in all other areas of my life.
Right.
Like,
because you're a mom, you're a wife.
And a human, and really recognizing that I wanted to be in an environment where I could be my full self and know that I would do my best work in that environment. So I quit my job and I came home and told my husband, who's a stay-at-home dad, that I was going to go back to Tech Pros, which is the name of the company that I worked for Merrill, and happened to open up my inbox the next morning. Hadn't spoken to Merrill for 10 years, and there was an email in my inbox that said, I've sold the company to the employees. They need you, and I think you need them too.
Wow.
And I did. So I took a $100,000 pay cut and came back to this company about 10 years ago now, 10 years ago it'll be 10 years in January, and started rebuilding our business. We were, at that point in time, we'd suffered pretty greatly during the downturn in 2009. Our business had lost probably 40% of its revenue. Everybody on the team had taken a 10% pay cut. We were highly concentrated. All of our business was really with one client.
And that's always good.
Yeah, not great, right? Not great. And we were, at a point of an imperative to change and reinvent our offering, reinvent our business model, recreate our brand. And I think I jumped in without knowing at all how close we were to a really bad situation, but jumped in because it was a hard decision. It wasn't a logical decision. It wasn't a brain decision. It was, I'm going to do this. This is where I'm going, and I'm going to see what I can make happen. I was able to sell about $5 million worth of business that first year that I came back. And that was different business too. Not the same business that we had been delivering. Not technical writing, not staff augmentation, but shifting into organizational change and outcomes-based consulting. So that was the launch pad for this journey we've been on these last 10 years of transforming ourselves from the inside out. I became CEO in 2015. So I naively thought that would be a pretty simple change because I was already a leader in the company. It wouldn't be that different to be the CEO, and I was very much wrong on that front. So that was another disruptive change for the business and then for me and my family. And
I bet. And because you were the face of the business.
That's right. That's right. So it changes things. And I love being number two. Number two is a really cool role, right? People come to you and say, ooh, this doesn't work for me. This doesn't work for me. Can you fix this? And here's what I see. And you aggregate and integrate and synthesize that information and bring it to the leader of the organization and say, here are my recommendations. This is what you should do. And then that's great. It's easy. You are a change agent, but you're also kind of always everybody's buddy.
Yep.
Move into the number one.
When you're the boss.
It's different. Yeah, overnight it's different. So being on that journey and learning how to lead, who I am as a leader, what I believe is going to make a difference for our business and for the businesses we serve has been fascinating and certainly exciting. And I hope to never ever work anywhere else. This is hopefully for me my last stop. But it was about coming full circle to an environment where people, myself and my COO and our number one salesperson and our director of delivery are all people that Merrill hired in their 20s and said, hey, you're smart, you're hungry, go for it, figure out, make something happen. Three of us came back, one stayed the whole time. And what we were coming back to was being seen and honored as capable and confident people, even if our track record or our, what we'd already done didn't tell that story. This belief and faith that we had the raw stuff, the ingredients needed to be successful.
Well, and I love this story because, as you said, you've been through this. And so many companies are going through things like this because they forced changes, in many cases because of technology, because mergers, acquisitions. You mentioned the fact that you initially had the one big client. A lot of companies have that. They have or maybe they work in one industry and that industry changes, and all sorts of things. And unfortunately, so many times the companies don't make it. And I think probably that to me at least, the biggest reason is because it's that's the way we've always done it. type of thing. And, and they refuse to change.
Yeah.
And that's when they fail. Even if they bring in new leadership, all of those things, because of course you can have new leaders, you can do all of those things. But if everybody isn't on board with here's what we're doing now, then it's going to fail.
I think that's right. I think the other piece that's a theme that's already emerging is in our conversation is this notion of knowing the answer.
Right.
And in the hierarchical siloed organizations, 19th and 20th century business models were built on the idea that, there are experts.
Mm-hmm.
Consulting was built on the idea that
Right.
there are experts, and they know the answer. And as long as you get the answer and execute against that, you'll be successful.
Right.
And we could know it all. And we as leaders, we are supposed to know it all,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you don't, certainly you should hide and pretend like you do.
Oh, yes. No, never admit that you don't know. Mm-mm.
And this is shifting. So what's becoming a more credible attribute of leadership and of organizations that are succeeding in the 21st century is that attribute of discovery and of learning and of exploration and of experimentation, so that the leaders who are really emerging today are the leaders who can bring humility and authenticity and
Mm-hmm.
humor and curiosity to the challenges that they face and say, I don't know, but here's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
Here are some
Right.
of the hypotheses I'm working. What do you see that I don't see, and how might
Mm-hmm.
we be able to test that
Right.
together and
Mm-hmm.
learn from our mistakes? So I think it's just a really interesting paradigm shift that should be good news
Mm-hmm.
for most of us. It's probably bad news for folks who grew up inside of a model where we got all of our self-worth and all of our validation and all of our recognition for being the experts and having
Right. Mm-hmm.
And when we now need to shift to, my job is to figure out the right questions,
Mm-hmm.
not to have the answer.
Right.
This is a journey for leaders and it's a journey for organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And we see most of our clients are somewhere in that journey. And we're developing our point of view and our hypothesis on what are those critical elements to succeed and thrive in a state of constant change.
Mm-hmm.
It's not super believable when someone tells you, I know the answer. And they're
Right.
doing something.
I know we're immediately skeptical.
You should be, right? Like, well, how could you know the answer?
Mm-hmm.
No one's ever done this before, right?
Right.
No one has ever
Yeah.
had a global workforce
Mm-hmm.
that is mobile,
Mm-hmm.
that is 5 generations in the workforce, that is dealing with regulatory transformations on the daily basis in an environment that has new and emerging technologies that most of us can't even begin to comprehend.
Right.
What the future looks like with robotics and artificial intelligence. And so if I say to you, because I know exactly how we should proceed, I mean, you should say, that's weird.
Right. Right.
Like, do you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really interested in then, if those are not the attributes of a successful company in the 21st century, what are? So organizations that will thrive in a state of constant change,
Mm-hmm.
what are the competencies that they need to build? And actually, what is the competency of change?
Mm-hmm.
We used to call ourselves change management professionals.
Right. Or change agents.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The idea being it's a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a
Right.
change
Yeah.
moment.
This was what we did here. Now we do here. Mm-hmm.
And we're done, right? And we've managed our way through it. And
Mm-hmm.
there was the before, and here's the after, and now we're done. And what's really true is organizations in the 21st century are in a constant state of change.
Right.
And our organizations that evolve and affect change in the world, they don't see anything wrong with that. We are change management professionals. We are change agents. We are practitioners of change. And when we make changes at Future State, team members that are on my team and trained in this say, well, I just really hope we're done changing.
Yeah. Can we be done with change for a little bit?
I just really hope that we got it right this time.
Uh-huh.
Well, chances are
Yeah.
we're going to change something else again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's because so many things around us change, and I think probably technology is the biggest driver of that. And we've had some guests on the program who've talked about that before. And, plus as we have so many age demographics that are working now. Baby boomers are continuing to work long past when they used to. And then we have these millennials who, I actually like millennials. But they're going to push things in a totally different way. And then we have, what is it, Z? Is that who's next? And then I thought, we're just going to start over and have A again.
Right.
But, when I initially got in the workforce into true corporate America, it was very structured. You were told you do this, you do this, you do this. You don't ask questions because, of course, somebody already figured it out. Mm-hmm. And, so you could already tell that probably wasn't.
That was a great fit for you. It was really fantastic.
No, because I'm one of the, but, type of people. And, and it was funny because it was an organization that was, we were government contractors. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of former military. So, it made sense that they had their rules and their procedures and all of those things. But, they also needed to, they were on the forefront of a lot of this new technology because they were the government. They were funding it. They were doing all of those things. And, it really was an interesting place to be because things were changing so quickly, but, we didn't always keep up, and now, it's funny because like you said, change is constant. It really is the one thing that is always going on. And for many people, they do truly thrive in that environment.
Yeah. And many don't, right? So the central competency mm-hmm. of empathy and meeting people where they are mm-hmm. and bringing a sense of orientation mm-hmm. to every moment, right? So as a leader, what becomes really important is that I pause and set context on an ongoing basis, mm-hmm. right? And that I make my decision-making process clear. Mm-hmm. It's not a democratic organization. Not everyone gets to have a vote.
Right. They can have input maybe, but.
Mm-hmm. And I need to make that clear, right? Here's a moment in time. Here's where I am in my decision-making mm-hmm. process. I'm currently gathering information. Mm-hmm. Share with me what your observations are. Mm-hmm. Somewhere down the road, I'll be making a decision. Know that I will have incorporated your feedback mm-hmm. and the feedback of others, but I will be making the decision. And transparency.
Back to the old buck stops here.
Yeah, and I was interested in if Future State could run as a democratic organization.
Right, and it is an employee-owned company.
It is employee-owned, that's right. So could we be a holacracy? Could we mm-hmm. be self-governing? And it was, and maybe we will at some point in time, but as I took over as, take over as CEO mm-hmm. and shifting our product offering, changing our name, mm-hmm. changing most of our leadership team, changing most of our client base, mm-hmm. changing our offering. And there was a point in time where I said, and I want everybody to be a part of everything.
Right.
Sure, I have the CEO
and
title, but I could not.
Chaos.
People were like, you are insane. Mm-hmm. Please just be the leader.
Somebody make a decision.
We don't want you to delegate all mm-hmm. of these. So it was a learning curve for me because I think mm-hmm. in my idealistic world, I love the idea of a business.
Right.
But we're 80 people, $15 million in revenue. Mm-hmm. 30 clients at any given point in time. We've got 60 projects running. Mm-hmm. There needs some people need clarity mm-hmm. and they need the ability to provide feedback and input, and they need to have a clear mm-hmm. path forward.
Right,
that matters. But we also need to be able to reflect, pause, and iterate and evolve on mm-hmm. what's working, what's not working. How do we do better?
Right.
What have we learned?
Mm-hmm. Right. And it does come back to we do need one person, I say person because it might be a committee or something, in charge. Ultimately there are decisions that need to be made, good and bad. And, it can't always be by committee, that one person. And it's funny, often those are the hard decisions, the bad decisions, we're going to have to lay people off decision, all of those type of things. And, and I think that's maybe what we're grasping with is the fact that we do want our employees, we could also be talking about, say, a volunteer organization,
sure.
and we want to have people involved, but ultimately it comes down to, one person. It's funny. I'm involved in a volunteer project, and lots of volunteer projects that are we all kind of volunteer. I mean, that's one of the cool things. And I was talking to the leader, and he mentioned something like, well, he really didn't know the financial status of the project we were working on. And I said, oh. And he said, well, I have somebody who's doing that. And I said, but ultimately, you're the person in charge. And financially, that does have to be, and so I told him, I said, you really need to get some reports, because he was struggling. He was feeling like everything was getting out of control and things like that. And I said, it really does need to start with financially, because, the various entities couldn't function because they weren't even given a budget. It was just go and do. And, and that might work in a volunteer group. It's not going to work in a company. We need kind of that oversight person that says, okay, there's this, but we're not going to say that you have to do this and this and this to get there. And I think that's what's fun, is we do get more flexibility with, okay, here's the end, but, there's a lot of different ways to get there.
Yeah. So kind of coming back to like the intro that you gave of purpose-driven and human-centered, as we've done hundreds of transformation projects with clients, you sometimes jump right over that purpose-driven, human-centered piece into project planning and tactical execution and steps to get to the end state. And then you end up in conflict and challenges and, well, what do we do? And, okay, well, we have to meet the deadline. And if we don't launch on time, then that's a problem. But we don't always go back to the why. What is the purpose? I'll share a story of a client, not by name, but a client that shared with us that they were really committed to getting closer to their customers, building more intimacy with their customers.
This is a good thing.
Yeah, multi faceted business, hundreds of locations, thousands of employees, and millions of customers. And ancient systems for customer management. Moving to Salesforce became one of the tactics in service of a strategy to get closer to customers. But Salesforce wasn't the outcome, right? The outcome was get closer to our customers. And the understanding was our agents, our frontline agents, the people who see our customers face to face, they currently do this incredible job of knowing humans that walk into a physical location. Gosh, the world's changing. People aren't walking in anymore. They're calling, they're chatting, they're texting, they're accessing information online. How do we bring that interpersonal dynamic to a multi-channel environment? And wow, a lot of these folks have worked inside of this model for 40 years. They know that customer, not only by name, they know that customer's address, the car they drive, the
kids they've got, the dogs, all of those various
things. This is a treasured relationship. But in the process of an 18-month-long transformation, we lost sight of this is about getting closer and more intimately connected to our customers. And this is about empowering our frontline agents to maintain that intimacy even as we shift to a multi-channel mode. And the project became about, we have $1 million. It needs to launch on June 1st. We're not ready. Cut training. We're not ready. Cut that functionality that allows them to see historical records, right? And it became about on time, on budget. And our job was to really help educate, lift the organization back up and say, what is the outcome? What is the purpose? What is the why that we're driving for? And what do the humans need in order to execute and be successful inside of that new world? Well, the rest is going to work itself out. You're right. It might end up being over budget and it might end up being late.
Right.
But why do something on budget, on time, that won't get you the outcome?
And it might work for that, for a little period of time, but then it's going to fall apart. It's not going to be sustainable.
Yeah, and then this one, it was like, it will actually cause you the opposite of what you're trying to do if you launch with no training and no features, right? This will create. So I think it sounds so simple. It's very easy to say. But as we march down the path of, my job description says launch Salesforce on June 1st. And that's what my quarterly bonus is based on. Right. I'm not going to go say, we're not ready. We should not do this. Right? I'm going to put myself at risk. So it's incumbent upon us as leaders to always be, to slow down again and always be saying, right, but let's clarify our purpose. Let's understand what it took, and let's not be an organization that's in a punishing mode or in a, witch hunt mode, but let's really be in the learning mode and in an inquiry mode,
Right.
and gather what we need in order to be successful. So,
Mhm.
this piece of human-centered and purpose-driven, we just keep coming back to it. And I think to your point about millennials and about how the world of work is shifting, and I grew up inside of I'm a Gen X, so my idea is work hard, and anything is possible. I also grew up in the .com era, so it was a little bit like the millennials, in that we didn't know what the heck we were talking about.
Because it was changing.
No one knew what they were talking about, so we got a little bit of a free pass. But I think the thing that emerges in this 21st century work is, I want to be personally fulfilled, and I want to do work that is meaningful in the world. And I want to learn, and then I want to produce the business results. That's part of my job description, right? So we can't, as leaders, rest on do it because I said so, or do it because it's the job I gave you. It has to be purposeful. It has to be connected, and we have to be able to draw those lines. And I know that's so here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I know that's so in many, many other, parts of the United States and parts of the world. And it's only going to get more, it's only going to become more profound.
Right.
That any leader that's resting on do it because I said so is going to find that is not working as well as it used to.
Well, and of course that's tricky, because a leader tends to be the type A person, who is the do it because I said so, do it because that's the way we've always done it. Or I'm one of these that falls into that, well, I'm the only one who knows how to do it right mode, right? And but part of being a leader is having some of those qualities, those take charge, be aggressive, and it is hard when we're giving up that control. When I realize, I have this project that needs to be done, and it's going to be done differently than I envisioned it, but we'll end up with the same outcome. And so to not micromanage and, all of those and that's hard. I mean, especially for those of us, that's the way we are used to doing things, to really let it go.
And have been acknowledged for that.
Right. Oh yeah. We got our bonuses because we brought it in on time, and, or we cut the budget, or we did whatever. And, and we don't want to deal with that fluff. How can you manage with that fluff? No, people need guidance. They need to be told this is what you do. And certainly there are times where you do have to follow specific policy or procedures.
Yeah, that's right. Compliance.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Efficiency. Yeah.
Yep.
You don't be a rebel without a cause.
Right. And I think what leaders struggle with is they just don't explain things. And again, that comes back to that culture. You didn't explain yourself. You just went and you said, this is how you're going to do it. And you mentioned earlier on, we don't want to admit that we're wrong. We don't want to admit that we don't know, and so we also don't want to admit how we're getting from A to B. It really is because we might not know. We know we've got to do this. We don't know what did, but we're not going to admit that middle part.
I had an insight recently about so you will hear from leaders. We need to be able to push decision making down, but people don't make good decisions, or I need people to be able to see end to end, but nobody understands the entire business. But what isn't happening is that next question, which is, so what would it take for me to ensure that everyone in my organization could see end to end and had the information and data and insight and wisdom that they needed to make good decisions? So how did I get here as the CEO of the business? Well, the first thing is, I am sitting in a position inside of which I, by default, have visibility. And I get dashboards and data and reports that tell me how each of the organizations are performing. And I have time to reflect and read and be on a podcast and engage in dialogue. And I don't have to, and I meet other people who are like me, but working in different industries, and we talk about things. So what would it mean if I provided that to not just my directs, but the directs below them? And how would I structure my organization? So we're really big proponents of things like public dashboards, transparent KPIs, visible to the entire organization in real time, same as what the executives are seeing.
Right.
Give people the data and give them the space to learn from one another, to collaborate, to connect, to dialogue, to share, so that that end-to-end becomes more visible. And then find that time-constrained and risk-constrained opportunity inside of your organization where you can give someone full accountability and autonomy to execute and make all decisions. Because Steve Bennett was the CEO of Intuit when I was there, came into a room one day to all of us that were frontline leaders and said, the number one thing you're getting wrong, he didn't know us really personally, right? But the number one thing you are screwing up, very direct, right, is you think it's your job to make sure your team members don't make mistakes. So you swoop in and do it for them. Before they ever
because we know how it needs to be done.
Because you know how it needs to be done, and you don't want them to make a mistake and get it wrong. And you are the reason why our organization won't scale, won't grow, won't succeed, won't make it, because your own insecurity and anxiety prevents your team member from failing and learning and growing from that failure. It's like there is no single mistake that any single one of you or anybody on your team could make that will take Intuit down. Not one. You could make the biggest mistake of your career. Intuit will be fine. And Intuit was 10,000 employees at that time. Guess what? I'm 80 people. There is no single mistake that any person on my team could make that will take future state down. It's all recoverable. We can fix it. We can make it work. But if someone on my team makes a mistake that has them realize, oh my goodness, wow, we really put our client reputation at risk when we did X, Y, Z, they will never make that same mistake.
Oh, yeah.
They're committed to future state. They're committed to our success. They're committed to their own career. They will learn from that and grow from that in ways that I could never teach them by telling them.
You know, and we hear the word accountability a lot. And, I think that really is one of the things that's so important. If somebody screws up, they need to know that, and yes, there are times where it could cost somebody their job, but for the most part, it's not, but they need to know that they can come forward and they can say, Shannon, I did something, and you'll use that as a learning tool. I remember one time when I was back in corporate America, I reported directly to the CEO of a large organization. I was the head of corporate communications, and he needed a script written. He was going to leave a company-wide voicemail, and so he needed this 1-minute script done. So I gave it to one of the people that I worked with. Now, I didn't give her enough guidelines, didn't do anything, so this was as much my fault through all of this as anything. And yes, we all learned from it. But she writes the script and just emails it to him. Doesn't run it past me, doesn't, because I hadn't asked her to. I had given her the power to do it. And, and so then, my phone rings. And we had caller ID on our phone. And I'm like, oh, this can't be good. And so, you answer in your most professional voice because you're talking to the CEO. He doesn't say hello. He doesn't say anything. All he says is, fire her. Well, I don't even know what he's talking about. So I said, okay, step back. Let's go. And so what she had written for him was actually perfectly fine. But she had written it like she was writing a text message. So no punctuation. She hadn't spell checked it. I mean, all these various things. And, and I said, okay, not going to fire her. No, I said, this is as much my fault as it is hers because I clearly hadn't explained things well enough. And then I went to her and I said, okay, now we're going to use this as a learning experience. You don't communicate with the CEO like that. And so we did. We used it as a learning experience. But, employees need to know that they can screw up. And if, and of course, the big thing is that it's always important now, I'm always one of these, I want to be the one to say, I did this wrong, as opposed to having somebody else tattle on me. I want to be there right at the start, right? And taking accountability.
Yeah.
But we need those cultures. We need people to know, okay, just as much as we need to know when you've done well, because that's also as important. We need to know, okay, what happened and what can we do to fix it? And most importantly, maybe they've already taken the steps to fix it.
Yeah, we started we use Facebook's internal social platform for companies called Workplace internally here at Future State. And we started a hashtag, the COO and I, hashtag I made a mistake.
It happens.
I mean, it's not like people don't know that the COO and I make mistakes, right?
Right.
It's kind of obvious. No one really thinks that we have all, and if they do, thank you. But, I think demonstrating to our organization that we have space for their humanity and we have space for our own humanity is important. I would love to say that, we were able to say the fireable offenses in an organization are values-driven violation.
Right.
Not.
Yeah. Was there an ethical breach? Was there?
Right. Yeah. Or for our values, Future State's values, some of them are, they're the future state values. They won't be right for every organization.
Right.
Our values include, being a team and operating in a model that is heart-driven and purpose-led. And some organizations would not have that in their values. It would be business outcomes at all costs, individual performance, and individualism. But for us, collaboration and teamwork is at the heart of how we're trying to grow and build our business. And so, that might be hey, this isn't a fit. That doesn't seem to be what juices you. You love being an individual contributor and being a rock star. And you should go somewhere where that's going to be the right outcome for you. But we are different. But I think, of course, we also have had to make layoffs and make performance decisions that the values were perfectly aligned, but the performance challenges were still there. But I think that is kind of the aspiration is how might we be an organization that was a place where people could learn, grow, and evolve, because I'm learning and growing and evolving. I'm not done. So how do we create that environment inside of our workplace too?
Well, one of the biggest changes, as we were talking about all of this, that I've seen through corporate America is that, we're no longer in the silos.
That's right.
We didn't, and you still have a marketing department, a sales department, a finance department, all those various things. But, when now they have to work together. They have to talk. They have to do all of those things.
And not just when you're doing your annual plan.
Right. Oh, yeah. You write your annual plan and then it goes on the bookcase behind you and you never look at it again.
That's right.
And I think that is often one of the hardest things for people, because that's not but this is the way we've always done it. What I love now are companies are really, really figuring out that it is a play together type of thing. And, I was in the companies where you've been pitted against each other.
That's right.
Sales was pitted against marketing, was pitted against finance, and all those various things. And were we successful? Sure. But we weren't as successful as we could have been.
That's right. Well, and I think, Deb, despite the fact that we know this is where we're going and that silos don't work, there are still a lot of systemic structures in place in almost every client we serve.
Right.
Large and small, that prevent this from really being, data is one, a clear and transparent dashboard that everybody says, yes, we're all working towards the same metrics and we're going to inquire instead of blaming, oh, that must be marketing's fault that we didn't hit our revenue targets. No, it's sales fault. We're going to actually do the rigorous business analysis and hypothesis testing and inquiry and 5 whys and root cause analysis to say, gosh, look at that. Actually, it's a shift in the market altogether. We missed it. We were looking at what we got wrong, but what we really missed was our opportunity to do something new.
Right.
And here's our pivot. But I think I wish I could tell you, working in 2019, I see the dissolution of silos and the creation of holistic and integrated and connected organizations. and that it's working. But we see a lot of people knowing that's where they need to go and not clear how to do it, because really all of our
We
structures,
like our org charts.
all of our org, it's so funny you said org charts, because my COO laughs at me. I'm completely org chart allergic. Like I see one and I go, oh, but that's not really how it works.
But this person is here. Yeah.
We don't really do it like that. But I think, so what is the operating model of the future? If it isn't an org chart, and if it isn't a governing body, or it's an org chart and a governing body and a PMO and a dashboard and incentives and rewards and listening tools and innovation and ideation and agility, like how is that all coming together in the 21st century to a scalable mechanism that is optimized for delivering on the purpose of the organization in a way that's human-centered. We have some ideas about it, but I don't think anybody's nailed it, right? And has that new world working to the point where, yes, I can be a functional expert in marketing, but I can see the entire enterprise and I can assess and diagnose across the enterprise. Right.
Well, and one of the things that we have to watch is we can't do information overload.
Nope.
And that's easy to do if you're saying, well, we're all in this together, and marketing needs to know what's going on over here and what's going on over here. And, sales needs to know and all those things, because then pretty soon you're just thinking, oh my gosh, the old paralysis by analysis type of thing. Right. So that's where it comes back to having that good leadership that knows, okay, they might not really need to know every detail. They just need the overview, or they need to know, they can ask if they want.
Or I need structures. I need structures that if I assume that people are going to be collaborating across my organization, sometimes effectively and sometimes not.
Right.
And that they're going to know more today than they knew yesterday, but they aren't going to know as much as they need to know, because how could they?
Right.
Then when I need to have our structures in place that are going to catch on the early side, when we might be going on, beginning to go off the rails. So I do need to have that data capability in my organization, even as a small organization. I need to be able to know, what are my early indicators? What are my lagging indicators? How do I begin to gather information and analyze information in a collective way, not just me, but with my peers, and say, here's the data. This is what that makes me think. What does it make you think? Oh, okay, that's a different interpretation.
Right.
How might we move forward in that? Plus my voice of the customer, my voice of the employee, my qualitative intuition, wisdom. And I need to be bringing those two pieces together on an ongoing basis to say, are my assumptions valid? Am I on the right track? Are we making the right progress? Do we need to pause? Right? So that, I think, is one of the fundamental shifts, is the frequency and the speed with which we need to be able to assess, diagnose, hypothesize, test. Assess, diagnose, hypothesize, test is much faster than a quarterly planning process, much faster than an annual planning process.
Right.
And how do we build that competency? And it is tools plus soft skills, right? It's the tools and the systems and the data plus not the capability and the safety to make those assessments and make those diagnoses and raise those.
And then you toss into that the fact that, we now recognize and try and work with the different personalities that we have. We might have somebody who they needed explained, and we might have the person that, give them a little bit of detail in a way they can go with it. And they might be 2,000 miles away. Or further, and so they're in a different time zone, and all these various things. And it's funny, I've actually had some people that have said, we've gotten out of corporate America. We just can't do that. And I mean, that's fine. That's why a lot of small businesses are started. But it is interesting, and of course I love the technology. I love it when when we are tying all of these things together, but it can be a very complicated time. And then you add in the whole outside information. You have people saying, well, AI is going to get rid of every job, all these various things. Well, no. And, technology still needs the human beings to do it. And to guide it.
Wisdom plus data, right? I
Right.
think there's inherent gaps in a pure data-driven approach, and there are inherent gaps in approaches absent of data.
Right.
What happens, hopefully, when we bring them together is better, better outcomes, a better world. But I think when I think about how we as an organization, how all organizations need to figure out how to be truly inclusive organizations, radically inclusive organizations. We now have a narrative in our nation of, okay, this is not an equal and level playing field, and we do have a legacy to overcome here in terms of equity, and we have some ideas of what that's going to take, but we don't know yet, really, right?
Right.
What is going to work, right? What is it really going to take to have 50% of the board be women, to have our populations represent the ethnic and political and, all the various elements of diversity that our customers and constituents hold in our corporate boardrooms and executive levels of leadership. And, we're starting to see the data that maybe implicit bias training doesn't get us it gets us some of what we need, but it's not the end, right? So what is it going to take to create radically inclusive and connected organizations? And the courage of leaders to say, I'm really looking at my own bias. I'm really looking at my own inability to collaborate effectively with people who share not only a different worldview, but a different way of, a different set of expectations and filters and assessment criteria. And gosh, it feels slower and harder. And I'm being told by the board, my number one job is increase share price this quarter, right? And demonstrate financial returns. And how do these connect? I'm sure they do, but how? And how do I build that case? So that's a big challenge for organizations.
Right. And as we talk about this, it also occurs to me that there are companies that will make the decision that they're not going to do some of these things. I live in the South. And so there are very different ways of doing business here as opposed to, say, California, and from many perspectives, and so there are businesses, and that's perfectly fine, but I think companies need to recognize, okay, if we're saying we're still going to be doing business this way, they just need to say why. Obviously here in the South, we have a lot of businesses that are very faith-based. And so they're going to think about things very differently. And so they're going to say, this is why we made this decision. Okay. I'm cool with that as long as I understand, as long as you told me that's why we're going to do it, then it's my decision if I want to stay or if I want to go.
Yeah, transparency is really important in the 21st century. I mean, we're a B Corp, which is an organization that's, publicly audited by an independent third party on our practices around sustainability and equity and workforce practices. And I think this is the thing. Give me choice, right? Give me the truth and let me choose. If I want to do business and buy stock, I can't do this yet, right? My 401k I can't easily in my 401k say I only want to own companies that have committed to environmental sustainability, or I only want to own companies that have 50% of their boards. I can't do that yet, but you can see a future where I could, where I as a participant in the market could say, I have a certain set of values, and the people that I choose to provide financial sustainability to, I want them to be aligned to my values.
Right.
That'd be really cool, right? That's I think, and then, yeah, that's right. So if I can make the choice and say, oh, I understand this business has decided that equitable representation on their board is not a priority, cool. I'm going to put my efforts elsewhere because that's a priority to me.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, and and people, they might be looking specifically for that, for whatever reason. And it's funny. I worked for a company that was an international company, and it was Dutch based. And, and I've been gone from there for quite a long time. So things have changed. But at one point, their board of directors were going to be white men. That was it. Now, the one little person that was an HR person.
That's right, always.
Right, but that was their corporate culture, and that's what worked for them.
Oh, sure.
And so you just understood that was the way it was going to be. But what I really love now, that we've transitioned into this century, is employees are asking for that, and they're looking for that. Same with consumers. We see consumers that are saying, you know what? I'm only going to buy from companies that do X. And the cool thing is we see changes being made. Usually, some people are going to drag their feet kicking and screaming, but, there are many things that really are changing now for the good of the majority. There's still going to be people who are fussing about things, but, as consumers, as employees, and it's not just the millennials. It's funny, back to that, we all fuss and we say, well, the millennials are demanding all of this. No.
I'm not a millennial. I'm demanding it.
I'm way older than a millennial. And I'm looking at companies that are saying, this is how we're going to function. This is what we're doing. And that's where I'm choosing then to do my business.
That's right. Well, and I think there's an inauthenticity, or let's just say, it is authentic to say that homogeneity works. It doesn't work. Right. Future State is an employee-owned, woman-owned company. 87% of our owners are women.
Yay!
Women in our company are all alike. Right? So we get credit for being a diverse business. We're not a diverse business. We're all women.
Right.
Of a certain age. Most of them are getting better, but for a long time, women of a certain age with children. Many of us, the primary breadwinner in our family, with stay-at-home partners. So educated, right? And so that's not diversity. It's easy.
Right.
We all think the same, we all have So when we're going through really tough, crunchy, challenging issues on a certain level, that might have been the right decision to make, right? I don't have to, I'm going through this really hard thing, and I don't have to actually stop and say, I do not understand your frame of reference.
Right.
It makes no sense to me, right? We were able to move quickly in a time of intense change. Now, as we're through, not that we're ever done changing, but we're through the really hard part. Now we have the opportunity to say, okay, great. Now what, right? Who are we committed to being, given what we believe about the 21st century work and about our planet and about our nation and about equity? So if not us, who, right? If we're not going to take on, it is hard.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it's worth it. Right?
Yeah. One of the things that, you mentioned, women owned. That is a very strong value for a company to have. And, there's also business reasons for it, because there are companies that have to do business with women-owned businesses and minority businesses.
About that, but we haven't gotten any of those yet.
And all of those things. But, it really could come a time where you're thinking, the person we need right now that's going to lead us is going to be a man. And all of these things. So then you have to stop and think, is this a change we want? And of course, that's what we've been talking about all along, is the fact that so many companies are going to say, nope, we're going to stick with this. But the companies that truly are going to be successful are going to go on. And you might think of, you might go through that and think, no, we really do need to stay women owned. And maybe we just need a different person in charge, but, or doing that role. But, here is why we're doing this.
That's
so
right.
It's not, I think sometimes what happens is we get concerned with, oh my gosh, we have to make those changes. We don't.
That's right. That's right. I mean, and again, coming back just to put a bow on it, it's about your purpose, right? So we've been examining lately. So is our purpose to make our employee owners as wealthy as possible in our employee stock owner plan? So do we exist to create wealth for our employees? Is that our number one reason for being? Do we exist to make our clients' transformations successful? Do we exist to be a petri dish and a lab for the 21st century of work? Those are three somewhat connected, but also potentially divergent reasons for being. And none of them are worth more or less than the other. But which is the reason that Future State's going to pursue at all costs, which is the non-negotiable.
Right. Yeah. You know, and that is where it is difficult, you know, to make those decisions, but you know, they're never written in stone.
That's right.
You know, and I think that's something, you know, back to what we were saying at the very start, you know, well, this is the way we've always done it. Okay, but you know, like I said, I was a Yabbit girl. Yeah, but what about
Blockbuster, right?
Right, I know.
To Kodak.
Yeah, you know, or taxi cabs, you know, all of those companies that, and again, you know, it was driven in many cases by technology, but yeah, the companies that just point blank refuse to believe things would change. You know, I talk to people every day that say, you know, no, we still have to have, you know, business done this way. I'm like, have you heard of Amazon? You know, and you know, all these various things, and you know, it really is something that is continually evolving, you know, as we have said, and the companies that will continually to evolve, and I don't care if, you know, you're a one person. I mean, you know, small business owners, entrepreneurs have to go through this too. I mean, you know, they have to know what is their mission, what is their vision, what is their purpose.
Oh, I think even more you have to as a small business owner, because it's hard.
Right.
You better feel inspired by that person.
Oh yeah.
Or you might just say, gosh, it'd be easier to have a job.
Right. Yeah. So, oh my gosh, Shannon, holy cow. This has been so much fun. I don't think I talked about any of the things that you know, that I had on my list, but this has been so much fun. Because we, you know, I've got my glass of water. This really is like a wine conversation.
No.
But, you know, it is so important that people think about this, you know, and, you know, what they're going through and the growing pains, you know, and let's be honest, it is going to be painful, you know, when companies are making these decisions and making these changes. And so tell us a little bit more about how Future State can help an organization that's going through this.
Yeah, we bring an interdisciplinary approach to our work. We are change management professionals, if that's what you're looking for, but we also bring process, innovation, design thinking, agile coaching to bear for our clients, based on our point of view that organizations that succeed in the 21st century are not just managing through a change, but building competency for ongoing change. So we want to leave the organizations that we work with in a position to be able to sustain and thrive in that state of change, and find joy in that, and normalcy in that state of change, and create empathy and compassion for one another through that change. And that's what we do. We work with for-profit and non-profit organizations. We work with membership organizations. We work with small organizations. We work with private equity companies that are acquiring and turning around smaller organizations that they see high potential with. We work with, of course, really large enterprises as well. And then, you know, to find me on LinkedIn, I'm more than happy to provide coaching and support and guidance to any entrepreneurs. Soft spot for women, but any entrepreneurs that are, you know, on their journey and looking to create a culture that will be resilient in the 21st century.
Great. Well, and so how do people find and connect with you and your company online?
Yeah, our company URL is www.futurestate.com. We're the website is always in flux, so you can find latest blog postings. Soon we'll have all the podcast links up. We also are very active on LinkedIn and on Facebook. So Future State has homepages on both of those platforms. And then Shannon, most easily found on LinkedIn. That's where I do I spend a lot of time there. It's a great platform.
Somebody yesterday went, ew, you still do LinkedIn? I said, I focus on LinkedIn. And it's funny, I have fun on Facebook. I do business on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I love LinkedIn. I think it's a great product.
Mm-hmm.
They do a fantastic job. So that's where
They're changing. Oh, don't I hate it when, you write an ebook about using LinkedIn and then they change. And I'm like, oh, really? But it's an ebook. That's why
That's
do
great. That's good news. That's the good news. That's right. Very good. Yeah, well, I've had a great time getting to know you, Deb, and talking with you about the world of work and making it a more exciting place to be.
Right. Likewise. And I hope that we continue this discussion because it is something, like we said, change is always, it's not that we're going to go, oh, what? No, tomorrow we're done. No more changes, no more changes. And so it would be great to have you on again to continue this discussion.
Good. I'll leave one word of wisdom, I guess, which is for the leaders that are listening. On the days where you feel like your team cannot withstand any more change, and the days when you feel like you're failing because you know that you need to keep changing, know that that you are resilient, they are resilient, and this is the future of work. So whatever competencies you're giving them and being more resilient through change, they will serve them in all of their future roles, because this is happening at large, highly successful multinational companies and small single-person solopreneur businesses. This is the reality. Knowing all the answers is not the truth anymore. It's about learning and adapting and evolving.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Well, I really have been having an absolutely wonderful time talking with Shannon Adkins. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer. Join us next time for more real-life stories and techniques to power up your business.
You've been listening to C-Suite Radio. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.